what happened at 16th Street changed the world. So we're about teaching lessons, we're about touching lives, we're about transforming this land. So we believe that we're now in a great position to expand on the rich heritage and legacy of 16th Street Baptist Church and the Civil Rights Movement. Because one of the things that President Obama did before he left office, he made the Civil Rights District a Civil Rights National Monument. So now we have the ability to attract even more people into the district. So when people come here, they want to know about what happened in the past, but we also want to give them a charge on how to lead in their own communities on the way forward. So this Education and Visitor Center will actually do that.
Hi, I'm Angela Abdul-Rashid, the host of the Prosper Connector podcast. We're the place where information is shared, connections are made, and great Birmingham stories are told by great Birmingham people. We have with us today Reverend Arthur Price from the historic 16th Street Baptist Church. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
And you're so kind by using those adjectives.
Well, I only speak the truth, historic. So we'll get started with the talk, but I always like to start the podcast talking about food.
Okay.
Because I love food.
I love food too.
So if you were to think about Birmingham as a food, what food would that be and why?
Wow, that's a tough one because I like food too, and several foods come to mind. If I had to narrow it down to one, you want me to narrow it down to one?
I'll take two. You cannot talk about food too much, so you can do one or two. Your preference.
Well, if I had to narrow it down to one, I would go with barbecue.
Okay, why?
Barbecue is diverse. You have different types of barbecue, whether it's the vinegar base, whether it's the tomato base, whether it's a dry rub or a very messy rub. So barbecue, I would say that. And Birmingham has a diverse population here. It has a diverse history here. And barbecue could be a little bit messy. And Birmingham's history a little bit messy. But at the end of the day, it tastes so good.
I love it. I'm going to steal that answer if anybody asks me that. I love it. That is us to a T. That's who we are. So speaking of who we are as a city, I would love to know more about who you are.
Okay.
I know that you're not from here.
No.
Proudly from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia born
Shout
and
out
raised.
to your wife, Candy, who often makes me want to go to Philadelphia. Oh, yeah. The way she talks about.
You've never been?
No, I have not.
You got to go to the birthplace of freedom.
I will. Thank you. I will. But tell us what brought you here. What's your journey?
Well, my journey, how far back you want me to go?
Go back.
Well, my journey in Philadelphia, I was a prosecution assistant in the Philadelphia DA's office. I worked in the Philadelphia DA's office for probably about 11 years. I was on track to be a career prosecutor. I was going to law school. I wanted to be a homicide prosecutor, but while I'm in law school, the Lord spoke to me and said, "You're in the wrong school." So I left law school with my wife and my 6-month-old child and went to Colgate-Rochester Divinity School. So I enrolled in seminary. So I went to seminary in Colgate-Rochester, New York. Spent probably 5 years in Rochester, 3 years to get the seminary degree, and 2 years of doing ministry in Rochester. After leaving Rochester and not getting the church right out of school, came back to the Philadelphia DA's office and began to work in the ARD unit. Now, my first stint in the DA's office, we're pretty much about prosecuting cases. Most people want to get notches on their belt, want to see how many convictions they can get. But my second stint was more about giving second chances to individuals. So the ARD unit is the Accelerated Rehabilitative Diversionary Program, and we would divert very low level misdemeanor cases where people can get their record expunged and they can get probation for those particular cases. So I got a lot of joy out of running that particular unit. I ran that unit for probably 3 years, and then finally got called to a church in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Pastored a church in Buffalo, New York for 3.5 years. While in Buffalo, heard about the 16th Street Baptist Church, had a vacancy looking for a pastor. Never been south before, so we applied. Never thought we would even get an invitation, but we got an invitation. We preached, and then we got another invitation to come back to interview. We interviewed, and then the church called somebody else.
Oh, wait, I was about to celebrate with you. Do tell.
Yes, the church called somebody else, but that person turned the church down, so they reached back out to us, and we accepted the call. So in January of 2002, we journeyed here to Birmingham, getting out of Buffalo. Mind you, the week that I left Buffalo, we got 7 feet of snow in 3 days. So it was pretty hard getting out of Buffalo with everything shut down. And Buffalo doesn't shut down for anything, but 7 feet of snow in 3 days. Got out of Buffalo to Birmingham, and we came here, hit the ground running. 22 years later, still here.
Wow. I like how Buffalo tried to keep you there with that snow and the shutdown, but we needed you here. We needed you here.
We needed to be here.
Yes. So I told you when we were prepping this, I'm not going to talk a lot about the history because I feel like if people don't know the value and the story of the historic 16th Street Baptist Church by now, they should Google it.
Okay.
But is there something about the past that you want to share to sort of take us into what we're going to talk about, which is what you all are doing now and what is to come?
Sure. Just for context, 16th Street Baptist Church, oldest Black Baptist church in Birmingham proper, organized 1873, 10 years after the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Lincoln. A group of African Americans wanted a church where they could be affirmed and not blended, so they started the first Baptist Colored Church. That church was on 4th Avenue, 12th Street, moved to where we are today. Wow. But the church that's there today is actually the second building on that site. The first building was destroyed or torn down at the turn of the 20th century, about 1909, and they said that no black church steeple should succeed or exceed a white church's steeple. Tear it down, they did. So Wallace Rayfield, the second licensed African-American architect, designed the church that we are currently in. And 16th Street Baptist Church had a dual role. It was a place of spiritual formation and a place of social recreation, because in the Jim Crow South, you can go to an Alabama theater, a Lyric Theater, or BJCC. So they would bring people to 16th Street Baptist Church. People like W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and Mary McLeod Bethune, Paul Robeson, Jackie Robinson all spoke at 16th Street Baptist Church. Marian Anderson did a concert there. But many people know the church for what happened in 1963. It was the center of the Children's Crusade. Dr. Martin Luther King led the Children's March out of 16th Street Baptist Church. After he penned his letter to the Birmingham jail, he was met back at the church with about 3,000 young people, because Bevel and Andrew Young wanted to get the young people involved. So he had a twofold strategy. And that strategy was, one, to fill up the jails in Birmingham, and two, get what was happening in Birmingham on this relatively new invention called television. Of course, in '63, no Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Got it on television. America saw the divide in the country. President Kennedy, who's apprehensive on civil rights, sends his brother down to broker a deal, and then King's emboldened to do the March on Washington. And then 18 days after that, the church is bombed, and 4 little girls lose their life. So that's kind of the context of the history. Since the bombing of the church has become a National Historic Landmark in 2006 through the Department of Interior. They signed that on President's Day of 2006. We have gone through some restoration and preservation of our historic church, because we probably get about tens of thousands of people that come to Birmingham to revisit that history and to pay homage to the 4 little girls, and to see how history has shaped us today. So being from Philadelphia, I kind of liken 16th Street Baptist Church to the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. If you go to Philadelphia, you have to see the Liberty Bell, because that bell is a symbol of America's freedom. And I think the church is a symbol of African American African Americans freedom to get the inalienable rights that they have today. Because after the bombing, of course, the Civil Rights Act was passed in '64, and then the Voting Rights Act was passed in '65. Because our forefathers and foremothers did not want the deaths of the four girls to be in vain, so they became agents of change, so that we can have the rights that we have today. So we attract tens of thousands of visitors, and we give them an immersive experience on the history of the church, the history of the civil rights movement. There's a experience room where they can get a firsthand knowledge from figures like Andrew Young and the late John Lewis, and people who were at the church on that day, so they can experience what that day was like and what it meant. They get snippets from the sermon that Dr. King preached at the funeral in that experience room, and they get to see the church, not just the basement, but also the sanctuary and the site where the bomb went off at.
Wow. And you get to steward that every day.
Yes. So that's just the historic piece. But at the same time, 16th Street Baptist Church is a living, breathing church.
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
I appreciate you sharing that history, but there is such great ministry going forward out of that space today. Tell me, especially talking about your past, wanting to be a prosecutor, and some of the work that you all are doing with men and some of the work that you're doing with youth.
Sure.
How are you carrying on that legacy today? And then I want us to fast forward to the future, because I hear there's this big campaign that is going on to really make sure true homage is paid to the sacrifices that were made, the impact that was made with the ministry, and to make sure that there is a place for the community to come to experience all that has happened, and for us to sort of walk out with our marching orders as to what we need to do moving forward. So tell us about now, and then let's talk about the future.
So now we have, when we got there in 2002, we came with a vision of Bible centricity, that our church is a Bible-centric church that reaches the lost, the lonely, and the least of these, and rebuilds those that are broken, battered, and bruised, and reproduce disciples that are able to discern and be developed in the Word of God. So part of our ministry to men, we have two ministries that really minister to men. One is our fatherhood ministry that meets on Fridays. Our fatherhood ministry is birthed out of, again, a desire that I had from my years in the DA's office of partnering with the criminal justice system. So we have one of our leaders, Norman Askew, who's a liaison with the criminal justice system. He went to the family court, and family court deemed some guys as deadbeat dads. We kind of deem them as dead broke dads, and instead of giving them jail time, they give them to us, and they go through a curriculum of about 12 weeks, and we teach them principles of fatherhood so that they can go back to their families and take care of their families and be responsible men in the community. And by completing that curriculum, we go to court with them to let the judge know that they complete the curriculum and they satisfy the curriculum, and instead of getting jail time, they will get probation.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Talking about ministry outside of the walls and making a greater impact in the city of Birmingham. That's amazing.
Yes, because one of the things I've learned is that we cannot lock our way out of some of the problems that we have, that some people do need another chance to get things right, and this is one of those programs that does that. And our other program is our Wall Builders program, where we partner with Drug Court, and we take low-level drug offenders who have minimum amount of drugs, first-time offenders. They come to our church, and we begin to teach them principles on job readiness and principles on what it means to be a accountable, responsible person in the world today. And when they complete that curriculum, we walk alongside them again back to court, make sure they satisfy that curriculum to the judge's satisfaction, and then again they will get probation instead of jail time, and we're working on a way for them to get their records expunged as well.
How many men are you serving with these programs?
We're probably seeing about 15 men a week. We've been doing it for about 15 years.
Wow.
So there's been thousands of guys that have come through.
And what about partnerships? You mentioned, and when you said like career readiness, my workforce development light was like, oh, yes, we need to be involved.
Okay.
Talk about partnerships and your need for partnerships and how the greater Birmingham community can get involved in supporting the work that you all are doing.
Sure, we always look for partners because a lot of times people don't like to take chances on people who have criminal records. So UAB Task helps us identify some potential employers that might be able to get some of those individuals who are in drug court to get them off the corner into a working environment. And as we tell them, you may not be able to make the money you made on the corner, but you won't be looking over your shoulder.
Right. And that's peace.
Yes.
That is priceless. Wow. And again, I'm grateful for you sharing this and having this opportunity to share this, because I don't know many people that may know this part of the work, the active work that's being done, aside from the great legacy, of course. But the ministry is moving on, moving forward, and still making an impact.
Yeah, it's still making an impact.
Yes.
Matter of fact, we just took 40 pastors to EJI a few months back to meet with Brian Stevens, so that we can try to get some other pastors involved to kind of replicate what we do at 16th Street, because we always can use more partners. So
The need is great.
yes,
So there's a campaign
there is a campaign.
ongoing.
Yes.
And that's all I'm going to say. I want you to tell us about this capital campaign and why you feel like now is the time to really expand upon the legacy of the ministry and its impact. And I say the city, it did impact Birmingham, but it impacted the world.
Yeah. So what happened in 1963, what happened at 16th Street Baptist Church, has impacted the world. One of the things we like to let people know is that what happened at 16th Street changed the world. Mm-hmm. So we're about teaching lessons, we're about touching lives, we're about transforming this land. So we believe that we're now in a great position to expand on the rich heritage and legacy of 16th Street Baptist Church and the Civil Rights Movement. Because one of the things that President Obama did before he left office, he made the Civil Rights District a Civil Rights National Monument. So now we have the ability to attract even more people into the district. And as more people come into the district, we see the opportunity to educate and enlighten them about what happened in the past, but also to give them a charge of how to move forward. So when people come here, they want to know about what happened in the past, but we also want to give them a charge on how to lead in their own communities on the way forward. So this education and visitor center will actually do that. It'll be a way that will teach civil rights history. It will also bring community engagement, because not only do we have people from Jefferson County that visit the district and 16th Street Baptist Church, but we have people from the Southeast visiting the district and 16th Street Baptist Church. We have people from the Northeast. We have people from the West Coast. Fact of the matter is, we have a group from San Francisco that comes every quarter with high school kids for maybe about 100 and 150 high school kids to learn about the history and to learn about how they can make a difference back in San Francisco. We have people from Australia, from Japan, from Wales, from Britain, from Ireland that comes to 16th Street Baptist Church. So we want to have a place where they can be engaged and have a conversation about what they experience, and also have cultural enrichment, where we again honor our ancestors in the past, but again give people a challenge that just because they did it in the past doesn't mean we can't do it in the future. So how are you inspired to go on and make a change, be an agent of change in the area or the community that you live in? And I also think it's going to make an economic impact in our city, in our county that we live in as well. Because as people come to the district, our district is probably void of places where we can have food at. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at putting in this visitor education center, a restaurant where people can meet and talk about their experience there, kind of like the restaurant Monell's in Nashville.
Yes.
Where they have these long tables and they serve bowls, and as they're serving, you're meeting other people and you begin to talk about what you've experienced. So we think that will be very enriching, and understand that this concept also has taken place in D.C. at the Native American museum where people experience that museum, and then they embark on that Native American cultural food and talk about their experience as well. And as you led the program, Birmingham is rich with food. So maybe they can have some barbecue, maybe they can have
You are
some chicken.
speaking my language. And you know, that, Reverend Price, that harkens back to what I learned the civil rights movement was like, that the gathering place was the table. The strategy took place over the table. The compassion, the outreach took place over the table, and it was community. And it may not have been people that looked like each other. It may have been. But oftentimes it was people who simply wanted to come together because they knew what was on the line. And so I cannot think of a time that I drive by your church and there are not people standing on those steps.
Yeah.
Take groups of people, lots of people
Yes.
taking pictures. So the thought that those people can go next door and convene and really converse and really talk about each other from a human perspective, share likenesses, enjoy food, of course, but also, again, get our walking orders. Like, I've experienced this, I've learned this. How am I going to walk out of this door different? And what am I going to do to make a difference when I return back to Belgium or San Francisco or Alabaster or Bessemer or from wherever they've come?
Right.
So how can people get involved? Like, walk me through what this campaign looks like. How can people get involved?
Sure.
How can they donate? How can big bucks find you?
Okay. So there's three prongs to the campaign. One, the building has to be built. So that's about $6 million. You can give to the building. No gift is too big or too small to give to the building to make sure that the building is built so we can have these interactive activities in the building. Second prong is an endowment for the historic 16th Street Baptist Church. One of the things about having a structure that's over 100 years old, it requires a lot of maintenance. So right now we have an endowment about $250,000, but we want to increase that to $1 million so that we can use the interest to make sure that there's never, ever deferred maintenance on that historic building so we can make sure it's always taken care of and preserved. And the third piece is for programmatic pieces for social justice and civil rights activity. So we want to make sure that we bring programs like the reenactment of the Children's March and any other programs that we deem that's important to our community to be housed in that particular building. So we want to make sure that we have enough money to make sure that we have adequate programming as well.
And how can people contact the church, find out more, support the campaign?
Sure. Go to our website, 16thstreetbaptist.org. That's 16th, street spelled out, Baptist spelled out, .org, and hit on our capital campaign button, and it'll talk about the three prongs where you can donate, or you can call the church at area code 205-251-9402.
One last question for you. So we know what got you to Birmingham, and we're so grateful for that. Snow involved as well. Buffalo, yes. We needed them here. But what keeps you here? What is it about Birmingham that makes your heart sing, that inspires you, that frustrates you, but keeps you getting up and going forward to make sure that the work that you do has the impact that we know that it has?
Well, I would say what keeps me here is the Lord. The Lord has placed me here for such a time as this. I have an assignment to do Bible-centric ministry, to exalt the Savior, evangelize the sinner, and to equip the saints. And 16th Street Baptist Church is not a museum. It is a living ministry. So we are about doing the Lord's work. It's not just about history. It's about telling his story. We're involved in community outreach, whether it's through food drives or whether it's through what the programs I talked about. We've adopted Tuggle School as well. And one of the things we'll be doing when school goes back in, we'll bless teachers with supplies so that they can be adequately prepared for schools, because I know a lot of people bless the children, but
what about the teachers?
We need to bless the teachers as well so they have adequate supplies as well. So we believe what keeps me here is the work, and the work is needed here. And we thank God for placing us here for such a time as this.
Well, we are grateful that you are here. We're grateful that you have already exceeded your campaign. I'm believing that. And thankful that you'll have enough sponsors, supporters, and that the legacy, and I love how you reference the ministry. It's not just historic. It is a living, breathing entity that is still making a difference. And so we're grateful for your presence here in the community and for the impact of the Church of Old, which has now morphed into something even more spectacular as it relates to impact. But really grateful that you all have taken the vision of the center that will come as a communing place for community. And by community, I mean from around the world.
Yes.
To convene in Birmingham, to know what we've done, and then be empowered to follow in our footsteps. So for that, I'm so grateful. Thank you for taking time to be on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And one more time, just in case someone missed it, how can they connect with the ministry so that they can be involved with the work that you all are doing?
Go to our website, 16thstreetbaptist.org, 16th, street spelled out, Baptist spelled out, .org.
Perfect. Reverend Price, thank you again so much for the work that you're doing and just for who you are. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you. God bless.